Hi, and welcome back to Shep's Chat 202. This is a continuation of Chapter 2, the Constitution. When we left off, we were talking about how Thomas Jefferson had stolen some of the ideas from John Locke. John Locke had come up with the idea of life, liberty, and property being certain inalienable rights that all people were given, and Thomas Jefferson steals that and makes it life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, putting it in the Declaration of Independence. And it is the purpose of government then to protect these rights. Government is established through this social contract, and power is given to it from the people. So that is, we have a republic, a representative democracy, or whatever you want to call it. The power comes from the people, and this is an agreement that the people are allowed to form a government to secure their rights and the welfare, and then in return, they will abide by the rules. After 1776 and our Declaration of Independence, we start right away drafting the Articles of Confederation. In the meantime, state governments are being established at a much more local level. 1781, we have the last official battle of the Revolutionary War at the Battle of Yorktown, and it is in 1783 where the Treaty of Paris is signed and we are actually free from Great Britain. During this time, all those little governments that had been being set up were primarily Republican governments that had strong legislatures. You're not going to see a lot of strong executives. Why aren't we going to see a lot of strong executives? We just gotten done fighting a war with a king that we were trying to break free from. We want to make sure that we don't have any monarchs coming in and taking that spot. The first governing document that we come up with is called the Articles of Confederation, which had been starting to be written in 1776, and it is approved by all the states in 1781. It is a voluntary association of independent states. So each state kind of thought of itself as its own country. If you think about it, around the world, states typically mean independent nations. So Great Britain is a state, India is a state, China is a state. It's only here in the United States that we think of states differently. They viewed themselves independent from each other. Some facts about the Articles of Confederation. They had a unicameral legislature, which means that they had one body in the legislature. The 13 colonies each sent an ambassador, and one colony got one vote. So they might have had more ambassadors, but they still only got one vote each. There's no executive, so there's no official person at the head of the government. There is no source of revenue. This is kind of an issue. They don't have any money coming in. Any money that they are given is at the will of the state. So how are they going to pay, like, I don't know, a militia? Each state is sovereign, so each state considers itself its own nation. If they are going to change the, well, first let's start. If they are going to pass a law, 9 out of the 13 states have to agree. And then if they're going to change it, it has to be unanimous. So everybody has to agree to change it. The Articles, there's some good things that come from them. The Northwest Ordinances of 1787, that's what's going to set up the West. That's how Wisconsin gets here. And it provides the method for admitting new states. So we're able to expand westward and grow as a nation. So that's pretty good. There's some bad things about the Articles. There's no court system. The fact that it has to be unanimous to change it, all 13 states, that's a lot of different people trying to get along and make the same decision. No executive branch. And they could conduct war and make foreign policy, but they couldn't collect money from the states to accomplish this. So they had to come to the states and be like, please give us money. And they're like, no, we really don't want to. And then there's some ugly parts of the Articles of Confederation. And we have to go back to remembering the purpose of government for this. And one of our major purposes of government is to maintain peace and order. That's why we have government. That's part of the social contract. Under the Articles of Confederation, we couldn't do this, primarily because, well, we had no money. The government was going broke all throughout the nation. There's debtors' prisons being sprung up. People are so poor they can't pay back their debts. And 21 prisoners it's like 20 prisoners are in there for debt, one prisoner is in there for murder or stealing a horse or something like that. So there are poor people everywhere. One of the reasons why people are so poor is because they had fought in the Revolutionary War and never gotten paid by the government. So we have a lot of people that are veterans that come back and they get no money. This is going to lead to one of the events in American history that is pretty important. It's called Shays' Rebellion, and it's led by Captain Dan Shay. And he leads a bunch of rebellious farmers, primarily veterans, and they seize courthouses, they disrupt trials, and they're going to start to release the debtors from prison, and then they go to attack a federal arsenal where they are finally stopped. What this shows us is that the federal government has no control because, well, there is really very limited federal government, and they have no way to support a militia to protect us. One of the main reasons for government. So some smart people realize, well, this really isn't working. So Virginia gets together with 5 other states, and they hold a meeting to discuss commercial problems. And then they send a petition to the Continental Congress, and they say, you got to think about what's going on with the Union. It's important. We have to deal with it now. It can't wait. And the Continental Congress agrees, but what they agree to is the sole purpose and express purpose of revising the Articles of Confederation. Remember, to revise the Articles of Confederation, it has to be unanimous, and they don't want to have a strong central government still at this point in time. So they kind of like the Articles of Confederation. They don't want to get too far ahead of themselves. But not everybody goes that way. So we get to the Constitutional Convention, May 25th, 1787. 74 delegates are chosen, 55 of them actually attend, and each state is represented except for Rhode Island. The characteristics of the delegate, there are 33 legal professionals, 3 doctors, 50% are college graduates. There are 7 former chief executives of the state, so Colonel and governor, 6 plantation owners, and 8 important business owners. Clearly not a good representation of the average colonist. So when we're thinking about democratic theories, this is definitely going to fall into the elitist theory. These are not people that are a representation of the people themselves. So we have the who's who and the who's not. So the who's who, so who was there? Benjamin Franklin, he's 81 years old at the Constitutional Convention. He is by far the oldest dude there. And in your textbook, it talks about him being carried in on a chair by prisoners. And I don't know, it's just kind of a fun little image that I think of. You also have James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and George Washington is going to act as the sitting chair. Thomas Jefferson is not there. He is away in Paris. Who else is not there? Well, no women, because they're not allowed to vote anywhere in any of the states, and no minorities. Although they had some power in the North, to think of them as a political voice was not existent anywhere. All right, so it's summer in the city. It's 115 days in the heat. They're hot, sweaty, and gross, and they're probably hungover a lot because they go to the local tavern afterwards and discuss. But the deal is that they're always in the same room, and it's always closed up, and they don't let other people in. So these 115 days in the heat, in this small little room, trying to write your new Constitution / amend the Articles of Confederation, which was never actually the plan. So factions. Some factions come up. Thanks to James Madison, you're going to read about that in one of the Federalist Papers. We want to make sure that there's not little groups that are making the decisions for everybody. But that's exactly what ends up happening. So they are strong nationalists, the people that follow James Madison, and they are afraid of allowing the common people to govern because they really don't know what's going on. And their concern is about Western lands and common property. They want to make sure that if the government gets more land in the West, that everybody has a say over it, not just more powerful states. So Madison comes prepared. He is there early. They open up with 15 resolutions, and it sets the tone for the rest of the meeting. That comes the Virginia Plan. So in the Virginia Plan, it is a bicameral legislature, which has a lower chamber chosen by the people and an upper chamber chosen by the lower chamber from nominees from state legislatures. That's trying to take some of that power back away from the people and give it to the more elite, to be perfectly honest. In the Virginia Plan, it is proportional to population, and because it's from Virginia, the slaves are going to be counted in this plan. And then the federal government can void state laws, which is a pretty big deal. That gives the federal government a lot of power and control. The national executive, well, we're going to have one, but you guys can work out the details. They don't really have a lot of details in there. And then there is a national judiciary. Once again, you guys work out the details. It's just appointed by the legislature. And all the little states sit back and go, no, this is crazy. It benefits Virginia, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania. The 3 of those states alone have a majority of the national legislature because their populations are so high. So they debate and debate and debate, but the little states are never going to let this pass. So somebody eventually